Welcome to the Garden Talk Salon as Carl Peverall opens the show. Hello and welcome to Landscape Your Life. Everybody give me, yeah! Yeah! Do we want to see Carl Peverall today? Yeah! Come on up, Carl. I'd like for you all to meet my very dear friend. I'm so honored to be his friend and his son, Ethan. Come on in, Ethan. Because of them that we have this fabulous sculpture debut of works of art that have never been seen before, except perhaps at one major exhibition. We're delighted and thrilled to have them ornamenting our little dove coat for as long as they remain unsold. And so I do want you all to meet Carl personally while you are with us. This is a very unstructured, this is a very unstructured group, but we are going to have a bit of a formal presentation to start with. There's a seat right up front for you. Come on in. And then we're going to then walk and visit every one of the sculptors and share with us his muse for whatever it was, the materials, the ambiance, how he found the stones. Who knows what came through this brilliant mind. And Ethan will very much be part of this conversation because they're a dynamic duo. How many fathers and sons get to really work together in concert? And I've watched them go telepathically, okay, now I need to move the gantry, which is this thing. And Ethan goes, okay, I heard that, but I didn't hear it. He goes, he moves it over, and it's just amazing. These things weighed multiple tons. And we had a large, how long was that trailer that came in?
I guess it was probably 24 foot.
It's pretty big, it's heavy equipment. And so they parked over here and then they unloaded sort of like the Egyptians would with this tripod system and got them placed. And I stayed out of it and I let them, he just could put it anywhere he wanted to. So
you pampered us.
Yeah, and then we fed them last night. And they're staying in a precious cottage that a friend of ours, Corbell Schaffner, owns. She's very gracious to share that with us. So now, as is our culture, we always invite our speakers to sign the rock star poster, which is right down here. And Kim, if you and Liz would step up, I'd like everybody to turn around and look at them. This is Liz Peverall is in the white lace. This is Dr. Liz Peverall, is Carl's better half, I might say. Yeah, and she's one of the best salad choppers you've ever had. And then Kim is Ethan's dear girlfriend who has a lovely voice and sings in Asheville. We're thrilled to have you for the second year in a row. And they helped us with the reception, so there's plenty of food. If you get hungry, please just help yourself to our tables of lovely little nibbles. The punch is an elderflower cordial that I made. It's non-alcoholic. So that's good, but we also have beers so it's all right. But in the meantime, if y'all would go ahead and sign your poster, okay. And I'm going to, all Mississippians, raise your hand, please. Look at that, we got 2, 3, Mississippians, okay, Alabamans. 1, 2, 3, 4, Alabamans. Floridians. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 Floridians. Georgians. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 Georgians. North Carolinians. Oh wow, we win so far. Tennesseans. Tennessee. Yeah, I'm a Tennessean. Who do we live? South Carolinians. All right. I would say, and my husband's a South Carolina person too. Did I leave out a state that's contiguous? Virginia! Yay! Thank you, Anne. Didn't want to leave you out. So as you can see, this is like a little church group. Everywhere. And we're here to stand at the side of a master. So, Carl, we'll go ahead and let you get rolling. And thank you all so much for being here and to have you for the winter. All right.
So there are actually 2 Virginians here. I was born in Virginia originally. I moved from there when I was 12 to Winston-Salem, North Carolina. After high school, we did different places. Anyway, a few days ago, my wife said, well, it can be complex because Ethan and I are so involved in it, it sometimes can be a little bit too much. But I know with my wife and my son here, I'll be looking at their facial expressions and they'll move me on forward to more interesting things should I get bogged down in detail.
And speak up, Carl. It's hard.
Okay, I'll be glad to. Last night I woke up about 3:30 in the morning, just excited and charged up about it. It's been quite a grueling couple of days, as you might imagine, in the heat and moving all this weight around, but it's worked out beautifully, and it's been really a lot of fun to be at this stage and actually see the pieces placed, and particularly to have you come and view them and appreciate them like you have. But the thing that kept running into in my mind last night as I woke up is, you know, it's like, okay, this is Carl Peverall. You're going to be talking about yourself all the time, and but the thing that my restless thoughts last night brought to me was just like all the people that have helped me get to this place, and it is amazing. From just the technical aspect of getting the works here, we had to bring them each individually in our small trailers to Asheville and accumulate them, and then the Donnie and his landscaping company came in a big truck and packed them up and brought them here. But then, you know, Mary Palmer, my wife, who has to tolerate living now with 2 artists in the family, and his partner Kim, who has to tolerate Ethan, trying to accommodate the needs of putting this together. And so anyway, I just thank you all. There's just so many thanks to be given, and I really appreciate it. And also the incredible hospitality that many people in the community have extended to Ethan and I and our family, offering us places to stay and places to eat. And then for you, the patrons, also, which makes it all happen. Your wonderful embrace of our show last year, your purchases and commissions, it just makes it all happen. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I think now I'd like to thank my mentors, my deities. A lot of people say, well, how did you get into this? And I can say, well, I can see in my life I've always been a stone gatherer. In my teens, I started collecting lapidary stones and cabochons and making jewelry and pendants out of things that attracted me, out of copper, brass, silver, things like that. And as time went on, you know, I started actually painting the landscape quite a bit, which put me out into nature, into riverbeds and mountaintops and whatever, and it was just a constant, compelling thing to be involved with stone. Early on, I started out, actually my first thing as a sort of an entry medium was going to a professional craft school, Penland School of Crafts. Most of you have heard of Penland. It's one of the world's finest craft art schools, I think it is. We now live just a few miles from it in Yancey County, but at the time that I went to Penland, actually, I'll back up just a little bit. After my first semester of college at University of North Carolina, I decided that it just wasn't happening for me. I decided I just had to find out what it was I really wanted to do and start getting involved with that as a mature person, to start really thinking for myself and starting to examine what is it that I was going to dedicate my life to. I knew that I really wanted to learn to work with my hands. It was just something that was ingrained in me. My grandmother, as a young child, used to babysit me by letting me watch her sew, and for hours and hours and hours I'd watch these beautiful long fingers, this country woman's hands sew, and she had a lot of these women that would come to her house, and she would put them in front of a mirror, and she would measure them all up and get it all, and they would turn around. It was all this sort of the sculpture of the figure, and then she would make these garments for them. They would come back and try them on, and then she'd have to redo them a little bit. It's just this whole process of making things that just entertained me to no end. Watching her hands, those scissors and the fingers, how they kept from going into the needle, you know, and all of those things just fascinated me from a really young age. And so I really have to thank her and give her credit for a lot of that thing just got ingrained to be the wonderful piece and compelling thing about making things for a maker who was born to do that. So I went to the craft school after leaving Carolina. Someone told me I took a ceramics course in Winston-Salem at their arts council, and my instructor saw at 19 years of age that I had all of this energy and passion to get on with something else, and he suggested that I go take a look at Penland, which I had never heard of in my entire life, just living 2 hours away. So I went up there, and at that time, there was nobody there. There was the director, and there were a few resident craftsmen at the time. This was in 1970, and the director was there. And it turns out they were getting ready to have their next session start. And this was something that they had just begun. It's called the concentration session. Summertime sessions are like 1 to 3 weeks. But these concentration sessions, they got this idea that if a person could come and stay for 8 weeks and just study one thing, then you could get grounded and really get started on a career in working professionally in the craft world. So I was interested in ceramics at that time. I went up there. The director was very glad to see me. It just so happened they had the class starting in 2 weeks. And they had 10 students, which was a full class in the weaving class, and 10 students in the ceramics class. And this was by the way, the first ceramics concentration class they ever offered there at the school. They had 9 students in the ceramics class. They had 1 space left, and they needed every penny that they could raise to make that school happen. You know, just anywhere you could get funds, that school, you know, absorbed it instantly. So he really wanted me to be in the class. He didn't care what kind of an artist or potter I was. There was that tuition which my parents were going to pay, and so he really showed me around and tried to put the best side forward, which was not hard there at Finland. How many have been to Finland and seen the campus yet? It's just an amazing place. It just really astounded me if something like that existed. But I remember clearly that day I had an epiphany while walking with him. We went down to a glass artist. I don't know if you're familiar with the glass world very much, but there's one of the great patriarchs of the glass world is Mark Pizer. He's still producing, brilliant man, quit a very fancy career as an engineer with Cornell or Corning, and to become more of a studio, kind of a sole producer of things. And he had his studio at the very end of the road as you go down to where the barns are. Some of you have been there may know that. That's where the resident artists are. And he'd been there for about a year making this ware that he was making. And he was sort of landscape painting in glass at that point. And he was actually, it reminded me of the walk that we took. He was putting in glass sort of the images of these tall pine trees in the fields behind in these beautiful classical glass shapes. And we walked into his studio, and the whole back wall was glass, and he had all these shelves with all of these landscape vessels in them. And so you looked through the vessels onto the landscape that they were about, and then you met him, this incredibly grounded, wonderful soul that was so at peace to be there doing what he had done. And I knew then that I didn't have to care a thing about working with glass. That was not the point. It was the dedication and the activity of working with your hands, connecting with nature, and making things on your own. So that's when I decided where I was going to dedicate myself. Now it's been a long and often complicated path from there to here, but I must say that I have been able to pursue it, and it's been very fortunate that I have been lucky to be able to have been able to continue. So my deities and influences, mentors, you might say. I think when I went up, after I completed my session there at the craft school, I was ready to go off and be a studio potter, I thought. And my teacher says, who was a MFA graduate from Memphis Academy, or actually she graduated from Alfred in New York, for the ceramic school in New York. She says, you should go to art school. I think just take your time. You know, you're 19 years old. You know, just learn a little bit more. So I went to art school. Then I got corrupted, or we might say, into everything else that's been done and what you could do in all these other things. So as a result, all of my life, the last 40 years or more, I've worked in various media, multimedia. I guess I've always wanted during that time to have one thing that I could really concentrate on, because that's what all the art masters will advise you. Is like, okay, you can pick one thing. You want to be a musician. You don't necessarily want to play all these instruments pretty well, but you want to be a master at one thing. And the visual artist teachers would do that too. So I could never do that. Whenever I would try to just focus on one thing, the thing that I was working on would get overworked, and I needed these other things to take me away, so that I was sort of looking out the corner of my eye a little bit more, and not so direct, and not trying to things become so precious. And so anyway, I just had to continue on with that path, and fortunately, you know.
Tune for part 2 as Carl discusses his mentor.